The humans' words were rephrased by the Koran translator. They say they are in charge now. They want us to comply peacefully. The tall human with the graying hair and scarred face turned back to the Koran warriors, his expression still unreadable. He raised his spear slightly, not in a threatening manner, but as if to emphasize his words. "You think you can just walk in here and take what's ours," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We've survived worse than you." The lead Koran warrior tilted his head, his neural inhibitors humming softly as they processed the human's response. "Resistance is futile," the translator intoned. "Your primitive tools are no match for our technology. Submit, and you will be spared." The human chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to carry more weight than the Koran expected. "Primitive, ho," he said, glancing back at the other humans who had gathered behind him. They were armed with spears, bows, and crude tools, but their eyes were sharp, their postures steady. "You don't know us as well as you think you do." The Koran squad leader hesitated, his secondary eyelids twitching again. There was something about the humans' demeanor that didn't align with the data they had been given. They were supposed to be fearful, compliant, or at the very least, disorganized. But these humans stood together, their movements deliberate, their eyes locked on the invaders with a calculating intensity. Before the Koran could issue another command, the tall human raised his spear high into the air and let out a sharp, guttural cry. In response, the surrounding forest seemed to come alive. Figures emerged from the trees, more humans, their faces painted, their bodies adorned with makeshift armor. They moved with a precision that belied their primitive appearance, surrounding the Koran squad in moments. The lead Koran's mandibles clicked in alarm. "This is not possible," he hissed. "Our scans detected no organized resistance." The tall human stepped closer, his spear now leveled at the Koran. "You rely too much on your machines," he said. "You see what you want to see. But we've been watching you, just as you've been watching us, and we know how to fight back." The Koran squad leader activated his neural inhibitors, preparing to subdue the humans, but before he could, a sharp pain shot through his side. He looked down to see an arrow embedded in his armor, the tip piercing through a weak point he hadn't even known existed. Around him, his squadmates were similarly struck, their advanced technology failing to protect them from the humans' well-placed attacks. As the Koran warriors fell, the tall human stepped forward, his spear still raised. "You thought we were weak," he said, his voice cold. "But you were wrong. We've survived this long because we know how to adapt. And now, you'll learn that lesson the hard way." Back on the Dominion flagship, Ambassador Val watched the live feed from the ground team, his secondary eyelids twitching rapidly. The footage showed the humans overwhelming the Koran squad with a level of coordination and strategy that defied all logic. "This changes things," Val muttered, his voice tinged with unease. Commander Zilv, standing beside him, clenched his claws in frustration. "How is this possible? They are supposed to be primitive." Val turned to him, his expression grim. "We underestimated them. They may not have our technology, but they have something far more dangerous, ingenuity. And if we are not careful, they'll use it to turn this invasion into a war we can't win." "Advanced," the comms officer replied, his voice tinged with disbelief. "They've developed countermeasures far beyond what we anticipated. Their jamming technology is sophisticated. It shouldn't be possible for a species at their supposed level of development." Zilv's claws dug into the observation table, his mandibles clicking furiously. "A deception," he hissed. "They've been hiding their capabilities. But why? To lure us in. To make us underestimate them." Val's secondary eyelids twitched rapidly as he watched the feed. The humans were not just fighting back, they were dominating. The Koran squad, once confident in their technological superiority, was now scrambling for survival. The humans' coordination was flawless, their tactics brutally efficient. "This isn't just preparation," Val said quietly. "This is a trap. They knew we were coming." On the ground, the Koran leader, his armor cracked and sparking, peered out from behind the wreckage of their transport. The humans were advancing, their movements deliberate and unhurried. The tall human with the scarred face, now clearly a commander of some kind, led the charge, his rifle slung casually over his shoulder. He barked another order, and the humans fanned out, surrounding the Koran position. The Koran leader activated his energy shield, the faint hum of its power core barely audible over the din of gunfire. "Hold the line," he shouted to his remaining squad. "Reinforcements will." A sharp crack echoed, and the leader's shield flickered and died. He looked down to see a small, glowing device attached to his armor. A human-made EMP charge. Before he could react, another shot rang out, and he crumpled to the ground. The humans closed in, their weapons trained on the remaining Koran warriors. The tall commander stepped forward, his expression calm but unyielding. "You thought we were weak," he said, his voice carrying a weight of centuries of survival and defiance. "You thought we were primitive. But you were wrong. We've been waiting for you." Back on the Dominion flagship, Zilf slammed his clawed hand on the console. "Deploy reinforcements. Now. We cannot let this stand." Val turned to him, his voice steady but urgent. "Commander, we need to reconsider our approach. This isn't just a resistance, it's a fully coordinated defense. They've been preparing for this for generations. If we push further, we risk losing more than just a ground team." Zilf's mandibles twitched, but he hesitated. The data, the scans, the predictions, all of it had been wrong. The humans were not the backward, pre-industrial species they had been led to believe. They were something far more dangerous, a patient, cunning, and unified force that had lured the Dominion into a trap. "Pull back the ground team," Zilf finally ordered, his voice tight with frustration, "and prepare the fleet for a full retreat. We need to regroup and reassess. This changes everything." As the order was relayed, Val watched the feed from the surface. The humans were standing tall amidst the wreckage of the Koran squad, their faces grim but resolute. They had not just survived, they had won. And in that moment, Val realized the true extent of their mistake. The humans were not just a species to be conquered. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the Dominion had just awakened a sleeping giant. Marched through the human settlement, their once imposing armor now battered and sparking. The humans moved with a quiet efficiency, their faces set in grim determination. The tall human later walked alongside the prisoners, his rifle slung over his shoulder, his eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting another wave of invaders. "You thought we were easy prey," he said, his voice carrying a weight of centuries of survival and defiance. "You thought we were primitive. But you were wrong. We've been waiting for you." Back on the Dominion flagship, Zilf's claws dug into the console, his mandibles clicking furiously. This is unacceptable," he snarled. "We are the Koran Dominion. We do not retreat from primitives." Val turned to him, his voice calm but firm. "Commander, we must face the reality of the situation. The humans are not what we believe them to be. They have outmaneuvered us at every turn. If we continue this engagement, we risk losing not just this battle, but the entire fleet." Zilf's eyes narrowed, his mind racing. He knew Val was right, but the thought of retreating from a species they had deemed inferior was a bitter pill to swallow. "What do you suggest?" he asked, his voice tight with frustration. Val exhaled heavily, his secondary eyelids twitching as he considered their options. "We need to regroup and reassess. The humans have demonstrated a level of strategic foresight and technological capability that we cannot ignore. We must gather more intelligence, understand their true capabilities, and then decide our next move." Zilf's claws clenched and unclenched as he weighed the options. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. Order the fleet to retreat to a safe distance. We will regroup and plan our next steps." As the order was relayed, the Koran ships began to disengage, their once imposing formation now a scattered retreat. The humans watched from the surface, their weapons still trained on the skies, ready for any sign of another attack. The tall human leader stood atop a hill, his eyes scanning the retreating fleet. He spoke into his handheld device, his voice calm but resolute. "Phase 2 complete. They are retreating. But this isn't over. They'll be back, and we need to be ready." His men nodded, their faces set with determination. They had won this battle, but they knew the war was far from over. The Koran Dominion would not take this defeat lightly, and the humans needed to be prepared for whatever came next. As the last of the Koran ships disappeared into the horizon, the human leader turned to his men. "We've shown them we are not to be underestimated. But this is just the beginning. We need to fortify our defenses, gather more intelligence, and prepare for the next wave. They thought we were weak, but we've proven them wrong, and we'll do it again if we have to." His men cheered, their voices echoing across the battlefield. They had faced an enemy far more advanced than themselves and emerged victorious, but they knew the fight was far from over. The humans had proven their resilience, their ingenuity, and their determination to protect their world at all costs. And as the sun set on the battlefield, the humans began the long process of rebuilding and preparing for the next battle. They had won this round, but the war for their survival was just beginning. The human leader stood in silence for a moment, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the last remnants of the Corin fleet had disappeared. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and the faint hum of machinery as the humans began the process of securing their victory. Around him, his people moved with purpose, their faces a mix of relief and determination. They had won this battle, but they knew the war was far from over. "Sir," his second-in-command said, breaking the silence, "the underground facilities are ready. We've begun processing the prisoners, and the tech teams are already analyzing the Corin equipment we captured. Preliminary reports suggest that technology is advanced, but not beyond our ability to reverse engineer." The leader nodded, his expression unreadable. "Good. We need to understand their weaknesses as well as their strengths. If they come back, we'll be ready." "And if they don't?" the second-in-command asked, his voice tinged with curiosity. The leader's lips curled into a faint smile. "Oh, they'll come back. Pride is a powerful motivator, and the Corin Dominion has plenty of it. But next time, they won't underestimate us, and neither will anyone else." He turned and began walking toward the nearest bunker entrance, his steps steady and deliberate. As he descended into the underground complex, he was met with the sight of bustling activity. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked side by side, their efforts focused on understanding the technology and tactics of their enemy. The captured Corin soldiers were being interrogated in secure rooms, their every word recorded and analyzed. The leader paused to observe a group of engineers as they disassembled a Corin energy weapon. One of them looked up and noticed him, giving a quick nod before returning to their work. The leader appreciated the efficiency and dedication of his people. They had spent generations preparing for this moment, and now their hard work was paying off. "Say," a voice called out from behind him. He turned to see a young woman holding a data pad. "We've intercepted a transmission from the Corin fleet. It's heavily encrypted, but our decryption teams are working on it. Preliminary analysis suggests it's a request for reinforcements." The leader's smile widened. "Of course it is. They won't let this defeat go unanswered. But by the time they return, we'll be even stronger." He continued through the complex, his mind already racing with plans and strategies. The humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of deception, of making their enemies see only what they wanted them to see. But now, the illusion was shattered. The Corin Dominion knew the truth, and so would any other species that dared to threaten Earth. As he reached the command center, he was greeted by a wall of monitors displaying real-time data from across the planet. Satellite feeds, drone footage, and intelligence reports painted a comprehensive picture of their defenses and the movements of their enemies. The leader took a seat at the central console, his fingers flying over the controls as he accessed the latest updates. "Status report," he ordered, his voice calm but commanding. A nearby officer stepped forward. "All sectors report minimal damage. Casualties were light, thanks to our preparations. The Corin fleet sustained heavy losses, and their retreat appears to be disorganized. Our cyber teams are continuing to disrupt their communications, and we are monitoring their movements in case they attempt to regroup." The leader nodded, his eyes scanning the data. "Good. Keep the pressure on. I want every scrap of information we can get from their systems, and double the patrols on the outer perimeter. If they try to send scouts or probes, I want to know about it immediately." "Yes, sir," the officer replied, turning to relay the orders. The leader leaned back in his chair, his mind still racing. The victory was sweet, but it was only the beginning. The Corin Dominion would return, and when they did, they would bring everything they had. But the humans would be ready. They had spent generations preparing for this moment, and they would not falter now. As the hours turned into days, the humans worked tirelessly to fortify their defenses and analyze the captured technology. The Corin prisoners provided valuable intelligence, and the humans used it to refine their strategies and improve their weapons. The underground facilities buzzed with activity, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of humanity. And as the leader watched his people work, he felt a sense of pride and determination. They had faced an enemy far more advanced than themselves and emerged victorious. But they knew the fight was far from over. The Corran Dominion would return, and so would others. But the humans would be ready. They had proven their strength, their cunning, and their resolve, and they would do whatever it took to protect their world and their future. In the silent void of space, the Corran fleet limped away from Earth, their shedded pride weighing heavily on their minds. They had learned a hard lesson, one that no species before them had ever needed to learn: never underestimate humans. And as they retreated, they carried with them the knowledge that their invincible empire had been deceived, manipulated, and ultimately humiliated by species they had once deemed primitive. But for the humans, the battle was just the beginning. They had proven their strength, and now they would use it to shape their destiny. The war was far from over, and humanity would be ready for whatever came next.